Hi everyone, this is Rohit from Lifestyle Mastery, and today I'm excited to have Roy Heldshtein, who is a managing partner at Team8, a venture group with remarkable track record of $2 billion in its prestigious LP investors include industry giants like Microsoft, Walmart, Capital One, Mastercard, and SoftBank. Roy holds an MBA from University of Michigan Stephen Ross School of Business. Welcome to the show, Roy.
Thank you so much, Rohit. Thanks for having me.
Awesome. So, you've had a interesting journey. We'll talk about it. We'll talk about it. But how did you get into this crazy world of VC and startups?
That's actually a great question to ask to start with because when the when the headhunter called me to offer me to get the interview for to be a CFO and COO at Team8, I asked them if they mistakenly called the wrong line in the Excel. I said check if this is the right name, but apparently it was, and yeah, it was just a regular headhunting. I was a VP of finance at a different company at Checkpoint Software for many years,
Yeah.
and Team8 looked for a CFO, and that's how it started.
Interesting. So, uh, you've done your MBA and you had a stint with BCG. Before the call, I mentioned I worked at OU Rooms, and there were a lot of strategy consultants. In fact, I was reporting to a BCG consultant. What was about BCG, Bain, and McKinsey, which makes such good operators and really good VC guys? What were some of your learnings over there?
Yeah, my experience in BCG is that you actually every day that you come to work, you learn something new about process, something new about management, something new about business, and it's like we called it as consultant. We said it's like dog years because when what you do over a course of 3 months is something that when you work in a corporate world, it takes you a lot more time to complete or to achieve. The thing of moving every few months from one industry to another, from one business problem to another, I guess gives you a big leap versus other junior professionals. So
Mhm.
I learned a lot during these years in BCG.
Interesting. And you spent, close to around 12 years in Checkpoint Software. What was the journey like? And, what are some of your learnings there?
Yeah, so I guess the proof is in the pudding. Spending 12 years in one place already gives you the answer. I had a very, very good time in Checkpoint. It was actually 12 and a half years, means
No.
that I was a finance guy. So I actually counted my years by the quarters because Checkpoint is a big company, it's a public company, it's a traded company. And because I was a finance guy, I was working before the quarter end and after the quarter end on both fronts. I was managing the order administration department on one end, and then also the business analysis and some other financial and operational departments on the other. So I was fortunate enough to be and to be involved in 50 quarters in Checkpoint, and I learned a lot. When my journey in Checkpoint started when Checkpoint was a company selling a few hundreds of millions and traded for less than $1 billion in the stock market, and it ended when it was worth 15 billion or even more, and selling for more than $2 billion. So going through this journey in one company, being part of the analytic part and being part of the thought leadership part was a life-changing experience for me.
Interesting. And yeah, obviously you then went to Teammate and you talked about, how a headhunter reached out to you. But what was the entire process like, and what got you uh, interested to move into this side of VC? Did you have any experience before, in a sense, were you investing into angel checks, or were you part of the M&A team at Checkpoint?
The short answer is yes. I was part of the M&A discussions. I was part of the pricing discussions. I was part of the analysis of purchasing. But to be totally honest and totally open, that wasn't the major part of my role. I think going from a giant like Checkpoint to somewhere else is very, very hard, because Checkpoint is a great competition to any other VP finance or CFO role. And I guess that the only reason I find myself so far away is that if it was a closed thing to Checkpoint, I would never left Checkpoint. I would have stayed in Checkpoint and go on and do my role. So the thing about, reinventing myself, learning about a new industry, going from a big giant company to many smaller companies, this was what intrigued me, and that was why I wanted to also get this kind of experience in my life.
Interesting. And Team8 is known for incubating and investing in early stage startups. So what was the approach when you look at investing into startups, and what's your thesis while investing?
Yeah, so you described it very well. Team8 has two arms. One is what I would say a plain vanilla venture investment, and then the other is what we call venture creation. And when we say venture creation, this is a science. So it's a very big big experience. I would try to describe it very briefly, and then maybe we can drill down or double click on different features. Basically, what we do, we work in four main vectors: so cyber, data, fintech, and digital health. And in these areas, which we are expert in, we are actually creating thesis about how the world is going to look like in 5 to 10 years. So we do a very deep and knowledgeable research about the world. When we have these theses, we check them with the industry and see if there is any need for a product that will match this thesis. Then we have a technology team that makes few checks if it's even a valid idea. And only then, when we have the idea about how the world is going to look like, what's the solution that will fit that world, and if the technology is viable, only then we take the founders and we do a match between the idea and the founder. So we actually do a reverse engineering to what is usually the venture world is doing.
Interesting. And you talked about the four verticals, and I've seen Israel has done some phenomenal work when it comes to cybersecurity and fintech. But what are some of the major trends that you're seeing in cybersecurity, digital health, or fintech?
Yeah, so I have to start with the obvious, right? It's many things about. Let's start with the cyber. So we see a lot of traction about AI. When I say AI, it's a big world, but basically AI is about the identity under the AI world. How can Rohit make sure that when you call your bank or when you log in, it's really you, and no one else is actually moving funds from your bank to another bank? That was like not by coincidence, an example of the intersection between cyber and fintech. So for example, our fintech guys are working very closely on the fraud perspective of the world. So that's one trend that I will identify. And our cyber guys will work on the identity from the AI perspective and the world perspective. That will come along with trends like DLP, data leak prevention, and items that are related to the huge, vast amount of data that is now going on from one place to another in the world, and we see it all across. So, consolidating this data, making sense out of it. These are just examples for 3 trends that we are working on, but these are just examples. We have many others.
Got it. And you have other partners in the company. What is the process of investment process? Do you look at the investment decision making process individually, or does each partner look at focusing on only one market?
Our way of working is very, very collaborative.
Okay.
There is no one that takes their own decision, and I'll divide it to 2. In the regular venture world, we are using the knowledge and the depth we have in the sectors that I mentioned in order to validate our ideas. So we do it with the other partners and with some of the industry that we work with. And we'll mention, maybe afterwards, we'll talk about our villages that are the people in the industry that has a relationship with us. But that's the venture world. We have a deal flow. The deal flow is being screened by the VC team. And once they have the idea, they check it also with the people in the foundry, in the venture creation side, and they actually double down or utilize the knowledge that we have. On the venture creation world, this is a totally different process, because it starts with us setting up the idea, setting up the infrastructure, then calling in the founders, and then they do what we call milestone zero. Just yesterday, we had one of our digital health companies, actually the third digital health company that we built, sitting in front of all the partners and some of the people from the industry, and they just described the idea in a very preliminary way, just showing what they did about market research, what's the idea, and only after they get the feedback and they get the consent, then they move on to the next steps. So that's the way we decide on both ends about which idea we should follow or we should go on.
Interesting. And, I recently listened to a podcast about USV, which is run by, Fred Wilson, where, they talked about investing into Twitter, where they thought Twitter had a great story, but not a good team, because, USV's thesis was investing into ideas. But when it comes to, Team8, what is your framework for assessing founders? Is team important, or, the ideas or the market?
If you ask about the ideas, right? Not about the founders. So, so the way to check upon an idea and decide about an idea will be a combination of the need and the feasibility to achieve it. When these two, so now you can find an idea that is brilliant, but it will take 10 years to develop the solution, or it's not even valid if you can do that, and that's what we call a moonshot. So it will get a grade that is lower than an idea that has a great potential as an idea, but also we see that we have a very good path for technology. Now, when it will become even better, if we believe that we can develop this technology, but other people will have higher barriers to develop this technology, then we are in some sort of a golden place where it's a big need, in our opinion, in 5 years from today. We are able to do that, and other people have less capability to do that. So if these three things are compiled together, that's probably going to pass the first milestone, I would say.
Got it. And what's been your biggest lessons when it comes to market sizing? How do you look at market timing risk?
On that, I will tell you that you have to be very modest when you come and try to assess the market, because especially for a pre-seed and a seed and an A investor, if there's anything I learned, is that things looks very pinky when you look in the long term. But when you get to the situation where things are getting more valid, it's always harder than you thought at the beginning. So going back to your question, when we assess the market, we try to triangulate and try to look at it from different angles. We always try to take a precaution and few things that will make sure that even if we have a mistake, the mistake will not change our answer about the validity of the solution and the validity of the company. But that's a big challenge, especially when you come so early in the game. So that's one of our biggest challenges. It's a good question.
Got it. And how much weight do you place on traction when investing? Like team traction and the market size, but how much is traction important?
I would say that traction is important, but probably not the most important. So before we go on, So first of all, we look at, at again, as I said, the validity of the product. We look at the ability of the team to create this magic, because this, I don't need to tell you, after so many podcasts and after doing what you do as a consultant, you know how of a roller coaster
Yeah.
being a founder is. And sometime it's more important, the qualities that you have and the ability of yourself to go through the dips is sometimes even more important than how strong is the traction and how everything analytically looks on the notebook. So I'm not saying it's not important. We look at it very seriously, but it comes as an addition and not as a first thing.
Correct. And how important is ownership when it comes to making, those mega venture returns? Do you look at 20% ownership in all the deals that you make?
Um, it's a complicated answer because we have two different models. So I would say in the venture capital model, that will be more or less the size of our in the company. But when we build a company, we look ourselves as a co-founder in a way, and then you'll see probably higher numbers.
Okay, got it. And do you believe that, a VC should look at, winning every deal to be, looked as the best in the venture?
You mean win against other VCs or win in terms of how successful are the companies?
Yeah, win against other VCs, especially in this market, when, it's very difficult to get the right sort of deals in.
So it's it's always nice to win a deal, and
Yeah,
we are trying to win as many deals as we can when we want a company. But I think the story here is also about winning the deals, but also about what is the value that you bring to the company and
right.
how strong is the fit between you as a VC and the company you invest in. Once this fit is a strong one, and we look at this fit for like very long and hard, then I think you will win the majority of the deals you want to win.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Interesting. And you mentioned something about, what sort of value add did you give to the founders? And, a couple of days back, I heard about Andreessen Horowitz. They have their own team of, BD sales, and now they're investing to GPUs. So when you talk about, value addition, what does Team8 uh, give to the founders when it comes to value addition, and to what extent can VCs, add value to founders?
Um, Team8 was established with a very unorthodox idea in the VC
Right.
world. So in the VC world usually works in a model that it's very lean and mean. You have one partner, maybe few that are helping you. They're sitting in the board, giving you a few advices, and more or less that's it. And the thing about a good VC, they will identify the winners and they will double down on them, and they will also identify as early as they can the losers, and they'll shut them down. This is very far away from the Team8 model. The Team8 model works on a real collaboration with the founders and the company. So the way we do it, we actually have a big group of people. We call it the platform.
I
Our
see.
platform consists of people that I already touched upon, the people that are doing research and are doing technology. But on top of them, we have a business development team, we have a marketing team, we have an HR team that are helping with recruitment, we have a
Yeah.
finance team, we have an ops team, and a legal team. All these teams are actually surrounding the company at the beginning, and they give them, we sometimes look at a second timer or a third timer founder, and we say, this is a good founder because they went through the problems and the issues, and they know how to do that. Now think about this platform. They did it not 2 or 3 times. They actually did it 20 times or 30 times. And the value add of these people giving to the companies is enormous. Now you take these people and they escort the company until the A round or the B round. And we truly believe that that takes the chances of our companies to succeed to a totally different place than other VCs. And again, knock on wood, until now, it proves itself right. So that's how it looks like. That's our model. The second part of the model, so one is the platform, and the second is the villages. So we have groups of people that are professionals out of Team8 that are helping our companies to validate their ideas, sometimes to be part of the POC or even the sales of the idea. But this combination of a platform, a company builders, people that did it so many times, and a village from the outside that keeps us real, makes us very unique, and I think makes the model a very successful one, at least so far.
Okay, got it. And when you talk about villages, so are people full-time working for Team8, or are they, part of the advisory team and they come in, incubate like an entrepreneur in residence?
It's a great question. So the 80 plus people that we call them the platform, they work for us full time. They are part. So we actually, if I'll go even into more details, Team8 will not take any management fees from its LPs. Instead, they are taking this management fees and putting it into the platform. So actually, sort of an investment in kind in our companies. So these are full-time people that are working around the clock to make sure our companies are successful. The villages, the externals, are not on any way or form, are not on Team8 payroll, and they are just external advisors that enjoy from what the knowledge and the exposure to market and exposure to innovation that we give them, and in return, they are part of our village and give back to the village.
Mm-hmm. Interesting. And you talked about, second or third time founders. Interestingly, I've always worked with first time founders. But what do you prefer? Do you prefer first or second time or third time founders?
That's a great question, because it's a kind of a never-ending discussion between the different partners. So it really depends on how you look at it. To be totally honest, I see very big advantages in a first timer coming with a lot of energy and the vibe of I cannot lose, I have to win, and going through everything. And I see big advantages in a second and a third timer. So I didn't give you a good answer because I said all the answers are correct. But I will say, maybe just to be more focused on the answer, it will really depends on the idea, on the market. And we in Team8, we always try to make we have to make a very good fit between the idea that we developed and the founders that we match to this idea. So sometimes it will be a first timer, sometimes it will be a second and a third timer. So that would be probably my answer. It's a good question. It's a big dilemma.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And just to follow up on that, there are a lot of jokes about US and European VCs who are going off holidays in Italy and in Europe. But you're working really hard, right? But if you want to give a chance to somebody in Team8, would you give to somebody who is not very experienced, or to somebody who's very experienced, who got a couple of big exits and can come in and source the deals for you?
You mean from a founder perspective?
No, as somebody who wants to be part of the investment team. Yeah.
Part of the investment team, we are looking at people that has a real experience in building companies. So that's the first thing we're looking for. And when you look at our partners, our managing partners, you'll see names that every one of them has at least one company or two companies that they founded. They were part of the management team. They went through all the cycle, all the pain, and being at that point and now coming to give an advice to a founder puts you in a totally different place than just someone that read a book or was a great analyst. But we believe that sitting next to them on the board seat, etc., requires them to be a company builders. Definitely when we start so early in the game. Remember, we start in a pre-seed, even pre-seed stage, and that's a very different position than go and invest in a B or a C round.
Yeah, totally understand. And I was fortunate enough to work with a Thiel fellow at OU Rooms. He was 20 years old when I was reporting to him. But would you rather back a founder who's an expert in the market, or somebody who's new into the market and is willing to, disrupt the market and does not know how hard it is to disrupt the market?
So here I have actually a clearer answer, even though with a caveat that every pot has a different cup, etc. In most of the cases, I would rather have someone that knows the market
Right.
and has an experience in the market and has a perspective of the market and has an opinion about where the market is going. Because remember that these people will have to change route while they are going. Both you and I know that when you sit and think about the initial idea, it will never look like this 2 years down the road, and definitely 5 and 10 years down the road. And in my opinion, you have to have some sort of a depth and some sort of a knowledge in order to make sure that these shifts are being made correctly.
Got it. And do you think are the CEOs the best fundraisers and allocators, or do you think they need the help of a CFO to to get them to the funding stage?
So I'm a CFO fan,
Yeah.
but I would say it has to start with the CEO. Just to be totally frank, it has to
Right.
start with the CEO. Adding a CFO to a company, the stage of doing that it varies. There is no one answer. There will be companies that will need a CFO earlier in the game because they are working in a specific sector or on a specific product that will require a CFO, and then the CFO can help the CEO to fundraise and do all the stuff that you referred to. But basically, it always starts with the CEO, and in some of the cases, the CFO only comes 1 to 2 years down the road.
Got it. Got it. And you got some great LP investors, like SoftBank, Microsoft, Walmart. So how did you go about building and maintaining those sort of relationships? And do the LPs also play a part in the growth of your portfolio companies?
Definitely. The answer is definitely yes. A big percentage of our investors are returning investors, and that's, I guess, gives you the bottom line of the answer. The
Yeah.
way to get to that point that most of them are repeating is to maintain relationship. You maintain the relationship through yearly LP meetings. You maintain them through keeping them up to date. You maintain it through giving them the opportunity to invest in your successful companies. And you do all that because we believe that maybe this is, again, not typical thought, but we don't necessarily think that we are the smartest people in the world. We think that we are smart, maybe, but there are more smart people around us. So, for example, when we pick an investment in one of our foundry, the venture creation vehicles, we actually take it up to our LPs. We have an operating committee and an investment committee that comprise of some of us and some of our distinguished LPs. And when we have a new idea, we come and consult with them. We don't do the decision by ourselves and just update them. We actually get their advice, use their experience, and try to make them, part of the family in a way. So we feel that we make the chances of win a big higher when they are part of the decision-making process.
Got it. Interesting. And 2023 and 24 have been difficult years for emerging VC managers as well. It's been difficult for them to raise the funding. So what's the biggest piece of advice would you give to a new investor today, or an emerging VC investor now?
You mean how to pick the right VC, or how to sell the best way your VC?
Yeah, I know. I'm talking about emerging fund managers who are struggling to raise
Yeah.
funding from LPs. So
Yeah, so definitely 2023 and 24 are very different than 21 and 22. That's for sure. The best piece of advice I can give to these people, and that's also an advice I'm applying upon myself,
right,
is to make sure that your value add and your competitive advantage is very, very clear. You have to make sure that you know how to articulate what you do more to your companies and how this makes you a better investor versus other investors. Because if you'll just be one of the crowd trying to say, I'm the smartest, that probably won't work. But if you will say, look, when I'm giving this service, when I'm giving, in my example, when I'm giving leads to my, or helping my portfolio companies to get leads from the industry, what makes the first few hundreds of thousands of dollars easier versus other companies, then you realize what your company get out of this and what your investors will get out of this. So when these things are clearer, I think it makes you, it makes it slightly easier to fundraise in this environment.
Got it. Got it. Interesting. And obviously, I want to talk about AI. So I got a lot of founders who've come on the podcast, and they said VCs want to know how is AI, going to be part of their strategy, and they're getting, a lot of different advice from people. Some have strong viewpoints on why AI will not disrupt. Others, I think people are still wondering what's the next stage. But what advice would you give to founders who have raised money in 2021 when with those good times, and now they're being asked how is AI going to disrupt the business strategy?
So my advice will be to avoid using AI as a phrase because the environment has changed, but to really use AI because it's a game changer. I think there's no more question about if this is going to be disruptive or not. This is one of the biggest disruption we as human beings have gone through. I don't know if anyone can tell how the world will look like in 5 to 10 years. That's part of what we're trying to do. But one thing that is clear, you have to use this tool one way or another. So either you build your startup to give a solution to AI. So for instance, one of our startups now is going to be a cyber security solution for AI systems. So that's a very direct solution connected to AI. You don't need to explain to anyone why AI is connected. But we do have many other companies that have a different solution, but AI can change the way to do the business, right? It can intensify the way to do it. It can simplify the way that they do it. But I would try to avoid just talking about it. Make sure that this is a real thing and it really makes a big difference in your product, and then you can talk about it. Otherwise, don't just use it as a figure of speech.
Okay, got it. Makes sense. And I've had a couple of Israeli, VCs who come on the podcast, and something which is quite interesting about Israel is it's a very tiny country, but if you look at the number of startups, that is I mean, quite amazing with the number of people they are in Israel to the number of startups. And one of the interesting analogies with one of the VCs mentioned was it's because of how uh, the youth is more mature because they go to the military. But what do you think? Why is Israel, at the forefront right after US and China has most number of startups, be it any industry? What are your thoughts on that?
Great question. I'll give you three just fun facts so you can enjoy how crazy it is, right? In Israel, you have one startup on every 1,400 people in the country.
Wow.
It's unbelievable. That's number one. Number two, where I'm sitting, I'm here located in Tel Aviv. In
Yeah.
the area, like in the radius of 27 miles, it's the size of New Jersey, more or less. We have 400,000 people working in different startups in different high-tech segments of Israel. So, sitting so close together, there is a lot of mutual work and brainstorm and mutual help. And this is like a real strong ecosystem. And maybe the last fun fact I'll give you is that we have 400 R&D centers of global companies in Israel. So taking all that is just proving your point about Israel is very special on the high-tech world. It's actually consists 50% of our export and 20% of our GDP of the country. It's huge numbers. And there are many reasons for that. One of them, you mentioned, being mature because you were in the army. Maybe another thing is that the Israeli Defense Forces, the IDF, is putting a lot of emphasis on technology. So you have units like 8200 and others that gives people a very big experience in technology and high tech before they go into the civil world. But Rohit, I think that there is also something about the way we are being raised and born. And it's something about being direct. It's something about being able to overcome obstacles. It's something about, what's going on right now in our country. It's something about being resilient. It's something about being, have a big belief in the future and in a better world. And, combining everything together makes people here, I would say, more entrepreneurial in nature.
Got it. Interesting. And, there's a lot of high tech things which are happening in Israel, but are there any trends that you're seeing which is not happening anywhere in the world, which is happening in Israel, where you think that, in the next coming years, you'll find a lot of starters from Israel really take the first leap?
So look, Israel is very strong on the cyber front, and you can see the number of exits, the number of startups, and that also highly correlated to what I mentioned before about the IDF. But I really do believe that we see few areas that will come from Israel. I see a lot of work on fintech. I see a lot of work on digital health. I see a lot of work on data, and these are also things that are close to my heart because Team8 is working on them. But I also see some honeypots on energy and on food tech. So these things you can see, Israel is a place that majority of Israel is desert. So we are very keen about desalinating water or using the energy of the sun to make energy. So I think you may see Israel in more areas than you see right now, at least on the global perspective, because cyber is already very strong. But I would guess that you'll see more of the items that I mentioned in the future coming from Israel as well.
Got it. Interesting. And Roy, I quickly want to do the top 3. What's your favorite business book?
Okay, it's a good question. I have many, and I had to read a lot because I moved from one industry to another. I would probably take 0 to 1 by Peter Thiel as one of the first books I read before I moved to the VC world that make things very vivid for me.
Yeah, no, absolutely. We'll put that in show notes. And, if you could go back in time when you started your journey with Team8, what is the one thing you would have focused on or done things differently?
Again, a very good question. Probably, if I can go back and, not invest in the less successful companies and invest more in the successful companies, maybe that would be the best thing I can ask for. But taking it on a more serious note, I'm learning a lot, and I think we as an organization are learning a lot from the past, and we keep changing all the time. So we have a very, very unique structure and a lot of intersections between different people doing things and different people helping them doing the same things. So I would probably build the structure slightly different, but I think we're getting exactly where we are because as we go along, we change it and we adopt it, and we do a lot of learning.
Got it. And do you have any favorite online tools, for example, Gmail, Slack, Zoom?
Yeah. So again, a good question. There are many tools that are kind of running into my head. So I'll give you the generic. I have to give you the generic answer of ChatGPT, but I'll give you something different than the other people that answered this question properly. What I like the most, one of my hobbies, is to take different tools of AI. So let's say Gemini and ChatGPT, and asking them the same question and do a competition or try to see how different the answers are. So that's kind of I'm revealing something that I never tell anyone, but that's kind of my secret hobbies that I'll share with you.
Interesting. That I'm going to try this and compare with. I've started using Perplexity and Claude, and so I'm going to compare and see.
Perfect.
Um, and Roy, what's the best way people can reach out to you and know more about Team8?
Yeah, so first of all, everyone can reach out to me via LinkedIn, Roy Heldshtein, or email me, roy@team8.vc.
Got it. We'll put that in the show notes. Roy, thank you so much for taking our time and speaking to us. I really enjoyed my conversation with you.
I enjoyed it as well. Thanks for having me, Rohit.